Yes, class. Today we are going to cover some leftover topics from chapter 1, which I left intentionally at that time because certain concepts were not clear to you. As we have discussed chapter 2 and the basic concepts about the bills of exchange and promissory note, you will be able to understand this topic better now. So, this topic was in chapter 1, which is presumptions as to negotiable instruments. So, the Negotiable Instruments Act has mentioned certain presumptions, certain basic presumptions, which are assumed to be applicable to all the negotiable instruments. We will presume that these presumptions are always there in those negotiable instruments, unless the contrary is proved. This thing is very important. Unless the contrary is true. In every assumption, when you will go through the topic from the book, in every assumption, this word is mentioned in the beginning, unless the contrary is true. That means, unless any of the party can prove that this presumption was not holding good in that instrument, we'll presume that this assumption was present there. This thing was present already there in that negotiable instrument. So one by one, I'll be discussing with you these presumptions. First presumption is regarding the consideration. So we'll always presume that every instrument which when made or drawn, it was always drawn for a consideration. That means the drawer was to get something from the other person. In case of bills of exchange, he was to receive some money, some consideration from the other person. That is why he drew this bill of exchange on the other person. Or in case of promissory note, the maker was to make some payment to the payee and consideration was there. Because of that, this instrument, this promissory note was drawn by the maker. And even after drawing of these instruments, when these instruments are accepted, like in bills of exchange, it is to be accepted by drawee, or when these instruments are further transferred, which is called endorsement or negotiation, this transfer is also done to a third person for some consideration. Now, in this case, we'll always presume that all these activities, the drawing, the making, the endorsement, and the acceptance, they all were done for a consideration. Second presumption is regarding the date. You have seen in the specimen which I showed you last time that in the bill or in the promissory note, a date of drawing of that instrument was mentioned there. So it is not mandatory, as I told you yesterday, it is not mandatory that the date will be mentioned. But in case a date is mentioned there, we'll always presume that the said instrument was made or drawn on that date only. Then the presumption regarding the time of acceptance. Now, in case of bills of exchange only, there is a requirement of acceptance. The drawer will write an order, unconditional order on the drawee that he has to make so and so payment at so and so date. After that, the instrument, the bill of exchange has to be given to the drawee. Then the drawee has to accept it also and he has to put his signatures. This also I have shown you already in the specimen of bills of exchange. So the acceptance may or may not be written with a date. Sometimes the drawee only accepts and signs and he does not mention a date there. So in case that date is not mentioned, then we'll presume that this acceptance was done within a reasonable time after the date of drawing of that bill. And that acceptance was done much before its maturity. Maturity means the due date on this, on which the payment was to be received as per the time mentioned on that bill of exchange. Next presumption is regarding the transfer. Now we also have seen, I have shown you the endorsement that the instrument can also be transferred further, and this transfer is to be done to any other person. So it is presumed that that transfer was also done much before the maturity date. Like for example, I have drawn a bill today, it was accepted the next week, and then the due date was the next month. Now this transfer was done after acceptance, but before the due date next month. So we'll always presume that the transfer has taken place before the maturity date and not after the maturity date, because it is not said to be the right transfer, about which we are going to study in detail in the further topics. Then is about order of the endorsements. Now I have also shown you the order of about the endorsements, that how the endorsement is to be done on the back of the instrument. Now when that endorsement is to be done, the endorser has to put his name, his signatures, and he has to mention the name of the endorsee. Now, let me give one example. A was the first endorser. A transferred it to B. Then he will mention endorsed to B and he will put his signatures. Now the bill or the promissory note, etc., it is with the second person B. Now B can keep this instrument with him only till the due date and recover the amount due, or if he cannot wait that much, he can transfer this instrument to somebody else before due date. Now B has transferred it to C, similarly C has transferred it to D. So multiple endorsements can be done before the due date comes. Now how to understand as to who endorsed to the other person? So in this case, the endorsements are to must be appearing in an order, in a sequence, but there is no set format for the same. So in that case, it will be presumed that the way the endorsements are appearing on the backside of the instrument, that order is the order of endorsement also. So in case A to B, B to C, C to D is mentioned, we'll understand that it was done in same order only. Because it can happen that in between two endorsements, there is a space on the paper, somebody inserts his endorsement in between that. So in that case, we'll presume that this person endorsed between these two first two endorsements. So why it is important? It is important, this order of endorsement is important because in case on the due date, payment is not done, there is some default in payment, then the last holder can sue all the prior parties in the same order. So to take a suit, to file a suit against the prior parties, you need to know who was the person prior to you, who endorsed to you, and so on. So more detail will be done in endorsement chapter. Another assumption is regarding the stamp. So the promissory note and the bill of exchange, they always are to be stamped. So it may happen that the promissory note or bill of exchange gets lost. So in that case, we'll presume that it was already stamped. It was duly stamped. In case of check, this stamping is not required. Check stamping is only there in case of bill of exchange and the promissory note. Then is holder in due course. So I have told you a little bit about the holder in due course already. A holder in due course is the recipient of any instrument who has received that instrument, and he has received that instrument from the previous person in good faith without any notice of defective transfer, and he has got it for consideration. So generally we'll presume that every recipient or every holder is a holder in due course unless otherwise proved. Next is proof of protest. Now what is protest? In your +1 or +2 accounting, you must have heard about the term noting and protesting. So it is the same thing, proof of protest, that whenever any instrument gets dishonored, then you can take an action in the court against the person who made a default in payment. And in that case, you need to present proofs of this dishonor, of this non-payment. So now in this case, to have a proof of this dishonor, you can go for noting and protesting. So there's a detailed topic about noting and protesting in the next chapters, wherein a person who wants to prove that dishonor has taken place, he has to again hand over the instrument to a legal official in the local courts who's called notary public. That person will again present the instrument for payment, and then again when payment will not be done, he will make a record of that non-payment on the instrument. That is called noting. And then in lieu of that, he'll be issuing a certificate that actually this non-payment has happened, and that is called the protest. So this becomes a legal evidence. Then the protest will be a legal evidence of the non-payment and hence the dishonor. So all these presumptions, they will be presumed to be present in every instrument unless you can prove it otherwise. So in case you want to prove that no, it was not stamped, no, it was not transferred before maturity, no, the holder was not the holder in due course. So the person who wants to question it, he has to prove it it is up to him. Unless you prove it, we'll presume that all these presumptions were present there. So this was about the all these presumptions. Another topic was left initially, which was regarding the two types of instruments, ambiguous instrument and inchoate instrument. Now, what is ambiguous instrument? Now, yesterday we have seen already what is a promissory note. It is an unconditional promise wherein a person promises the other person to pay something, some amount. Then we have done bills of exchange, which is an unconditional order where the person who has to receive money, he draws an unconditional order on the other person and that other person accepts it. Now, sometimes it happens that the wording on that instrument is so intermixed that you are not in a position to judge whether it is a bill of exchange or it is a promissory note. Like, wording is that of promissory note, promise, but the parties are three: draw, drawee, and pay. Whereas in case of promissory note, it is only maker and pay. So in such situations, there is ambiguity about what nature of instrument it is. So in such situations, it is said to be ambiguous instrument. Now, what to do to decide about now the nature of instrument? For that, under section 17, we have been given certain rules which says, let us suppose there was an instrument which was in the form of a promissory note, but in addition, it was addressed to a third person who accepts it. Whereas I told you, acceptance is required only in case of bill of exchange, because draw draws it, he hands it over to drawee, drawee makes an acceptance, then only it becomes a legally due bill of exchange. In promissory note, there's no such need of acceptance. There's no question of acceptance of that promissory note, because the person who has to make payment, he himself is promising it. Similarly, another situation can be the drawer and drawee are the same person in the bill, or drawee does not exist, it's a fictitious name, or the drawee is a person who's incompetent, you cannot take action against that person. Or another ambiguity may be amount mentioned in words and amount mentioned in figures, it is not matching. So in that case, it is said to be ambiguous in instrument. So in that case, the holder of the instrument, he has the discretion to choose it either as a bill of exchange or as a promissory note. And once he makes a selection, then he has to stick by it. He cannot change it later on. And about the ambiguity about the amount, that amount in figure and amount in words is different. In that case, you can consider the amount in words to be the true amount. So that was about ambiguous instrument. This can come in a short note type question. Second is inchoate instrument. Inchoate instrument means incomplete instrument. Instruments which are incomplete in some regard. Now, what will be incomplete? It may be something like the amount payable has been missed out, stamp has been imposed, but the amount was missing, was not filled up, or name of the payee was left blank, or date was not mentioned. So in that case, we call it to be inchoate instrument. But this instrument being inchoate or being incomplete still will be valid, provided it has been signed by the drawer and it was signed by the drawer along with the stamp also. It was on a stamp paper or it was properly stamped, then it becomes a valid instrument. Then the person who receives such instrument, which is incomplete, he has the legal authority to fill on his own the amount, the name of the payee, and even the date. Now, the person who was supposed to write all this, he has missed out these details, maybe intentionally or some reason. In that case, he has kind of passed on this power to the next recipient that he can fill up, because he has duly signed also and he has put the stamp also. Now the next person, he can fill up all these missing details, incomplete details, but in that case, he has to check that the amount that he is going to fill up should be covered by the stamp, because the stamp to be affixed depends upon the amount of that instrument. So that amount should be matching. In case it is not so, then the person will not be liable for the payment of the amount. The person who's liable on that instrument, he will not be liable for the payment of this amount. So this was the pending portion of chapter 1.